All right, here we go. Folks, hello and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. With me on your right is my co host, who is the online contributor and associate editor of the sports media blog, Ken Fang. Ken, thank you so much, as always. Good evening, and we are very, very excited for this show
Yes.
in particular. Ken, why don't you tell us about tonight's show?
Well, we have a very special guest with us. It's going to be on very shortly. It's going to be Amy Trask, NFL analyst for CBS Sports, also the former CEO of the Oakland/LA/Oakland Raiders again.
Yeah,
It's going to be great to have her on, and we'll be talking with her when she's on with us, and we're looking forward to having her on the show.
absolutely. Amy is one of the probably one of the most well-known female executive in the sporting world. There aren't that many, unfortunately, and Amy probably stands out the most because of her background in the NFL and also having worked for the late Al Davis, who certainly is not exactly a easy person to work or probably get along with. So we'll probably get in touch with the her experience working with Al Davis, and if she can offer any insight and advice on working with people like Al and what taught her, what she learned from working with Al Davis, and if that's something that can be applied not just in work but also in life experience as well. But
Mhm.
she'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour. We're very, very excited to have her, and then I think this is one of this we've used to do a live recording with the old the Barroom Network on YouTube, based out of Chicago, with Aldo Gandia producing us our show. We used to do a live interviews with guests and stuff like that. But hopefully we'll be able to bring on more guests moving forward. Certainly, Amy is somebody who is very, very experienced, has a lot of knowledge in the industry, and hopefully that our goals of promoting diversity will live through with the interview of people like Amy, who has certainly has experienced plenty in the industry as well, Ken.
Absolutely, and we look forward to having her on very shortly. So let's first talk a little bit about what's going on in the NFL. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, Stephen. And I know as a Chicago Bears fan, we have to talk about what happened to Aaron Rodgers. 4 plays into his career,
Yeah,
his professional debut at the New York Jets. He went down, and it's really unfortunate what happened. We don't. Even though you whatever your personal opinion about Aaron Rodgers, no one roots for injury, and to
yeah.
see him go down with now what we know is an Achilles injury, he's going to be lost for the entire season. Jets fans have to feel that they are cursed. They really have to feel for them. They did win the game last night in a walk-off fashion in overtime. A great return by Gibson, who you saw on,
Yes.
yep, who everyone saw on Hard Knocks, be accepted by the team. But boy, Stephen, that was just tough to watch.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking. I was watching it in a car, and his highlight for this year is basically carrying an American flag out of the tunnel on the 9/11 anniversary, and then literally 4 plays in, he tore his ACL, and I am look, I'm a Bears fan, and I hate the Packers as much as the next guy, but look, I don't root for injuries or anything, even as somebody who is as you know piss poor and guy who's made some controversial remarks like he has. And,
Throw behind Diggs. It's fourth
you
down.
know, I'm very, very sad. Certainly, the Jets had high hopes this upcoming year. They were legit contenders, and he suffered an injury. Literally 4 plays into the season, and his season is done. And I thought the Jets were basically dead in the water. Here's the play that I think we saw: Leonard Floyd, a former Bear, sacking Aaron Rodgers. That kind of hyperextended the Achilles, and now turned out to be a torn ACL. And it's a terrible ordeal for the Jets fans, who finally had a lot of high hopes. Certainly, Rodgers, did his part to endear himself to the tough New York media and the fan base. Recently attending the U.S. Open tennis not too long ago, etc., and then also attending what is it? Opera? Not opera, but Broadway shows or something like that. So it is it is a shocking start to the NFL season. We had a lot of shocking developments in the opening day, week 1. Certainly, that's something we're going to get into as we continue to record our Double A Team podcast live stream.
Right.
In addition to other sporting news around the world as well.
Well, let's talk about more about the NFL with our special guest tonight. Let's bring in Amy Trask from CBS, and also the former CEO of the Raiders, both in LA and in Oakland. Amy, it's great to have you joining us. Thanks for coming on this podcast tonight.
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast. It is an honor and a pleasure to join you. I appreciate that you're having me on, and I appreciate that when you invited me, you converted the timing to California time. You did the time zone math for me.
Well, I know it's very important. Thankfully, when I went out to the West Coast last month, the Pacific time is still fresh in my mind. So I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for doing this, especially on short notice. Thanks for coming on with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Amy, let's talk a little bit first about the this past weekend. I mean, boy, week 1. If there was anything that we know about the NFL that is predictable, it's unpredictability. And what happened? Stephen, you've been listening to a little bit to us, Stephen and I talk a little bit earlier. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he was well hyped. And of course, everyone's expecting him to come in. But as a former executive, when you have someone like that, then you bring in a big superstar, and you're hoping that it's going to lead to the Super Bowl, and then he gets injured in the first game. As an executive, what goes into your mind when something like that happens?
Well, a few things, reacting to a few things that you said. I was smiling, and this was the only thing that made me smile, because the situation with Aaron is very sad. But when you said unpredictable, because as I am fond of saying, when it comes to the NFL, expect the unexpected, because the unexpected happens all the time. And in fact, the unexpected shouldn't be unexpected. And that's not by happenstance. That's the way the league is designed. The league is designed so that there is parity, that every fan of every team believes that on any given Sunday, his or her team can win, and any given season, his or her team can win it all. As I was listening to you earlier, and I agree with the comments you made, if you are a true sports fan, if you are a sportsman, you never, ever, ever, ever root for injury of a player, no matter the team for which that player plays. It can be your biggest rival. You never root for injury. As to the injury to Aaron, not only was it game 1, it was the first drive of game 1. He was on the field for all of 4 plays. And Ken, as you know, Susie Schuster and I are starting a brand new podcast called What the Football. And we started it today. It will drop tonight. And the reason I bring that on is our first guest was a magnificent, magnificent, magnificent first guest. Magnificent on the field, magnificent off the field, a perfect first guest. And that was Charles Woodson, who played with Aaron in Green Bay. And we had an opportunity to discuss this with Charles. And I will give you from an executive's perspective, and then I'll share with you what Charles shared from a player perspective. From an executive perspective, you have to be prepared for situations like this. It doesn't mean they're not heartbreaking. It doesn't mean they're not devastating. It does not mean they're not extremely, extremely disappointing, and as I said, heartbreaking. And you build this whole off season around this hope and this dream, and then it's shattered. But you have to be ready to go with plan B or plan C, and team executives are ready. In other words, when Aaron went down, they know who the available free agents are should they want to bring one in. They know which players may be available for trade should they want to make a trade. So they're prepared intellectually to deal with these things, but no one's prepared emotionally. And that's why I referenced Charles in our discussion with him on What the Football earlier today. He too referenced the emotion of this, whether it's the emotion in the locker room, the emotion in the organization, the emotion of the fans. It is tremendously disappointing.
Exactly. I mean, we all saw the Hard Knocks. We all saw what Aaron Rodgers was doing in New York, ingratiating himself to the fans, appearing at the U.S. Open, appearing at New York Ranger games, New York Knicks games, all over the place. And then this happens. I mean, and as you mentioned, as an executive, you have to think of the unthinkable, the potential of him being injured. But what does this do to a team like the Jets, who have been thinking, hey, we had Zach Wilson last year, but let's bring in Aaron Rodgers to maybe bring us over the top? I mean, what as an executive, what goes into your mind when you have to think of basically the unthinkable?
Well, you just said it. It's unthinkable, but you have to think about it, which sounds like an oxymoron. But you did bring him in to maximize that which you have on the team now, and that's something else we discussed today with Charles. And we acknowledge the fact that the Jets have a tremendous, tremendous defense. So one of the questions I asked Charles when he was on with Susie and I was, who do you look to in the locker room? Who do you look to on that team to lift everyone's spirits, to get back past the emotional devastation? And his answer was the defense. And so I will say to you that if this defense can hold opposing offenses to relatively few points, that will give the Jets offense a far better chance, because of course it's math. And the fewer points the defense scores, the fewer points the defense allows, the fewer points the offense has to score. Now, you asked about it from an executive standpoint, so I will point this out to your viewers and listeners. This is something that permeates and resonates throughout the entire organization. Yes, your trainers and your medical staff are dealing with the injury. Yes, your player personnel people are looking for how you're going to fill out your roster and how you're going to proceed. But this is going to impact your advertising and sponsorship departments, both in terms of being in touch with your advertisers and your sponsors and sort of consoling them and talking them through this. And it's also going to impact bringing in more advertisers and sponsors. It's going to affect suite holders, suite sales, customer service. Something like this is devastating within the entire organization. So the point I like to make is, when organizations are focused on lifting the spirits within the locker room, which of course is tremendously important, and invigorating the locker room, you got to do that with the whole organization.
Absolutely. We're speaking with Amy Trask, analyst on CBS Sports, one of the panelists of that other pregame show, which can be seen Sundays at 8 o'clock Eastern time, 5 a.m. Pacific time. You're a trooper for getting up at 5, especially when you have to do it for your live spots from the West Coast. But Amy, of course, talking about this week and the unpredictability, Kansas City lost in their game on Thursday. The Cincinnati Bengals lost on their game to my Cleveland Browns, by the way, on Sunday. It just goes to show that, and of course, there's that cliche any given Sunday, but it really is true. The fact is that no matter what you may think the conventional wisdom of a particular game, you just never know what can happen, especially in that week one when you're all thinking, when hope is eternal, when everyone's thinking that, hey, I got a shot, and things like this can happen.
You're absolutely right in every respect. Hope does spring eternal. Week one can be very odd. In the case of Kansas City, they were without Travis Kelce. They were without Chris Jones. As I often say, it's a game of inches. It's a game of seconds. Who knows if Chris Jones is there? Does he get to Jared Goff a second sooner? Does he get an inch closer? Does that force an errant throw that's intercepted? It's a game of seconds and a game of inches, and that may have clearly made a difference for Kansas City. One moment to mention your Cleveland Browns. I love all that they do in the for dog adoptions, and of course there's the dog pound, and I'll mention the dog pound in a moment. But every summer at Browns training camp, they work to find forever homes for rescue pups, and I love your Cleveland Browns for that. And you know what? I love the dog pound. When we went on the road and we played in Cleveland, I loved interacting with Browns fans. They're really terrific.
Well, one of my most heartbreaking moments, and this was before you joined the team, but of course, Brian Sipes' throw to Mike Davis in the end zone, which was intercepted, still pains me to this day. I know there are things that still pains you, and I'll get to that later on, but that still pains me to this day, Amy. So the Raiders have broken my heart a few times as a Browns fan. So, Stephen, you got a question?
Yeah, Amy, it's an honor to be speaking with you. I am a long-suffering Chicago Bears fan, and certainly Sunday's season opener took a lot of air out of, I think, a lot of Bears fans, myself included, and the Chicago sports radio station really, really lit up yesterday, and also parts of it today. I apologize for plugging my work here. I also write for the Fansided Network regarding the loss yesterday. Certainly raises a maybe not a DEFCON 5 alarm, but certainly what we witnessed yesterday, the coaches, the GMs, certainly everybody involved had to be really, really alarmed by the performance and the preparation leading up to this game. I want to know about the Bears ownership. Certainly George McCaskey and Virginia McCaskey certainly are not exactly well known, or not liked by the Bears fans, and certainly by the media during their ownership. I would like to know if you've met the McCaskey family, and what is the problems that the family-owned or franchises faced with. Certainly Davis family. You work for them. Al, certainly not exactly an easy person to deal with, having gone battles with the NFL. Fight tooth and nails and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on the McCaskey family and the Bears organization from an outsider's perspective?
Well, I interacted with McCaskey family during my years in the league. I interacted with them at league meetings and league functions, and I had what I considered to be a terrific relationship with them. They care deeply about their franchise. They love their franchise. Obviously, the owners of every team want to win. They seem, certainly over my years in the league, they were doing what they believed was best and in the best interest of the team. And, look, at the end of the day, owners have ultimate responsibility and ultimate authority, and owners can, and that's every business. That's not just football. That's not just sports. If you are the controlling owner of any business, you can delegate responsibility, you can delegate authority, but ultimately you have ultimate responsibility. You have ultimate authority. You can always yank back anything you've delegated. So I do understand why the fans are frustrated with team ownership, but I would simply assure them that they want to win. As I said, I didn't have anything but positive interactions with them.
Yeah, I won't deny that, they're committed to winning at least. But, the problem has been that, they certainly don't know how to hire the right people or give, the resources. Certainly, the McCaskies are cheap moniker is no longer applicable, but it's just basically that much maligned Ted Phillips, the team president, for more than 2 decades, certainly has had to hire and fire multiple GMs and head coaches under his leadership. And the only hope that I have as a Bears fan is that Kevin Warren, who left the Big Ten commissioner job earlier this year to become the new team president and CEO, certainly won't probably not tolerate any sort of mediocrity as he plans to get a state-of-the-art stadium for the Chicago Bears, which is the sole reason why he was hired. And certainly off the field product, if it's subpar, I don't think Warren doesn't have any room for tolerating mediocrity within him. I would like to know from your experience, working with the Davis's family, and certainly fighting with municipalities and the states and the governments. What do you think about the Kevin Warren and his job of trying to, get a new stadium in Chicago or Lake Forest or wherever it might end up? And what is the something that myself and the Chicago Bears fans has to understand when it comes to trying to secure a stadium and the long processes and certainly unpopularity of trying to use taxpayers' money when it comes to getting these stadiums?
Wow, there is a lot baked into that question. I'm not sure where to start diving in. There's a whole lot there. I guess I'll start by noting you've referenced several times the litigation in which the Raiders were involved. And I like to note when anyone references that, we were the defendant. We weren't the plaintiff. So people like to point to the litigation with the city and the county and say, oh, Al was litigious. Well, we were sued. We did not sue the city and county. We did file a counterclaim. But we were sued, and in the case of the NFL, they sued us, and we filed a counterclaim, although that was before the lawsuit the league filed was before I was there. So, I may sound like a 8-year-old when I say, but Mom, they started it. But in both of those instances, they started it. Kevin does have a huge, huge job in front of him. There is, a very, very fair, good debate to be had about whether municipalities or states should be devoting the sort of money that they devote to facilities used by, private entities. And that's not unique to Chicago. Buffalo is committing a lot of money to a new stadium there, and I could go around the league on and on and on. Vegas gave a lot of money to the Raiders for that stadium there, or invested a lot of money, I should say. And I think it's absolutely, absolutely fair for people to say, we don't want our taxpayer money going to these facilities. But I also think it's fair for people to say, no, we're okay with that. Because when you bring a team here and give it a new stadium, you're attracting visitors, you're bringing in revenues, you're bringing in tourism dollars. It's a fair debate to be had. And at the end of the day, people have the power at the booth to cast their vote how they wish. So if they have people in office that are either giving money to teams and they don't like that, or not giving money for stadiums and they don't like that, they can vote with their minds and their hearts. So there is a lot of work to be done in Chicago. And, I think highly of Kevin. I worked with Kevin when he was in the league and I was in the league at the same time. And we'll see how it unfolds.
Certainly the issues of using taxpayer money to fund for stadium is a never-ending, discussion and the debate. I'm pulling an article on The Athletic that was posted this afternoon, Amy, about the Major League Baseball's billionaire owners leaning into public for the money for stadium. As somebody who's lived in the Oakland area, worked there, you're very much aware of the A's and their struggles of securing a stadium in that area, and now they're basically 1 foot in the door with the Vegas. Chicago White Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf made some waves about maybe moving to Nashville, etc. There are also talks about Baltimore maybe, with their lease on Camden Yard coming to an end, and they might need a ballpark soon. Milwaukee, there have been some debates about maybe they're the ones who was moving to Milwaukee, from Milwaukee to Nashville or Charlotte or wherever that might end up, if if there is no money available to, fix up the Great America ballpark, or American Insurance Ballpark, formerly the Miller Park as well. When you think about the NFL versus the major leagues and any other sports in this country, and it seems as though owners, with all the respect, they're certainly a lot of them are man-made millionaires, or certainly they were so-called nepo babies who've handed wealth down as well. Do you see the problems with the fans and the society, where owners who are billionaires and certainly can fund these stadiums, begging and asking, or even threatening the cities when it comes to asking for these types of money? And if you're a team president from these types of experiences, how would you handle these contentious
There's no one answer to that. I can speak to the NFL, but it also applies to baseball and to basketball. In the NFL, there's 32 teams. Let's put the Green Bay Packers aside because they are publicly owned. The other
Right.
31 teams are owned by different owners. Many are families, as you noted. Many of these families, they hand the team from generation to generation to generation, and it's inherited. Some of the teams have been purchased by people who did not inherit the teams, but each are run differently, and each team is run differently, managed differently, and prioritized differently. So the answer is there's no one answer. There's no one size that fits all. And I absolutely, positively understand the pushback by some on cities and counties and states subsidizing these facilities. I absolutely understand the pushback on that. I understand the issues associated with it. But people have the power to let their elected officials know this is not okay with us. And, query whether that would impact whether officials do this anymore or not. I don't know the answer to that. There are arguments on both sides, as I said. One argument is, you're a millionaire, you're a billionaire, paid for it yourself, we don't want to pay for it. The other argument is, whoa, we don't want to lose a team when we know that this team brings in umpteen $1 million a year in tourism dollars and creates jobs on game day, running the stadium, running the concessions, running the parking. That's an argument to be made also. If a team leaves, you're losing jobs and you're losing revenues. In other words, it's not a simple one-size-fits-all answer.
Right. We're speaking with Amy Trask, CBS Sports, also the CEO, the former CEO of the Los Angeles / Oakland Raiders, as you can see, from 1997 to 2013. And earlier, when she was on, she spoke about a new podcast that she's co-hosting with Susie Schuster. Amy, let's give you a plug on that. What exactly is the podcast?
Well, I'm smiling to ear because you are so generous and so kind and so gracious. Thank you for that. Just started today. The audio will drop tonight. The video will drop tomorrow on any podcast platform that anyone likes, whether it's Apple or Spotify or Amazon, any place. Might also be on YouTube. We'll see. It is two people talking about issues involving sports. We're not breaking down X's and O's. I could do that if I wanted. I don't want to. It's not what Susie and I are looking to do. We're looking to have intelligent discussion, smart discussion about issues in football and otherwise, not just football and not just sports. And also, we're going to eat ice cream every single podcast. So, Ken, if you are ever out in LA again and
Yes.
you want to come on with us live, I will have ice cream for you.
Well, the thing is that as many people know, I was out in the LA, San Diego area last month, and
We'll get you back.
I know. And the thing was, is that I didn't tell you I was going to. I did tell you I was going to be out there, but I didn't say what time I was going to be in that area. So we missed each other. But
We
we're definitely
did.
going to have ice cream together. We're definitely going to have ice cream together.
Well, we did miss each other, and I was very, very disappointed that we did, and I was sorry that we did miss one another. But we will always have ice cream for you on our podcast should ever you come out.
I appreciate that. One thing before we let you go, Amy, and we again appreciate you coming on with us. I know you have a lot of Al Davis stories, and I know there's one that you told about him not wanting if Hard Knocks had come along. But let's say a situation came about where, and he was always very, very gracious with NFL films with whenever they came around. But would have there been a situation with Al when let me try and phrase this correctly again. Was there a situation when Al asked you or actually told you to do something, and when you said maybe I can do it or I'll try, what was his response to you?
Hey, I didn't ask you to try. I told you to get it done. That happened maybe 2 weeks into my job. We started, 2 weeks in. I don't even remember whether this happened 2 weeks into my internship or 2 weeks into my full-time job, but he asked me to do something and it was quite challenging. And I looked at him and I said, I thought I was kind of being strong. And I said, okay, I'll try to get this done. And he looked at me and said, hey, I didn't ask you to try. I told you to get it done. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And I walked out of the room and I got it done. So that may have been the story that you were thinking of.
Right, exactly. Amy, we appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you. As always, you're a delight. Maybe the next time we'll talk about how we really feel about the alleged fumble that Tom Brady had against the Raiders. Maybe we'll talk about that. I know you're not over it. I'm still there are many things about the Browns I'm still not over either. So we'll talk about that the next time you're on. So
I will say this again, absolute pleasure and honor to join you. I am just tickled pink that you invited me to join you. That's my mom's expression. I have no idea why that just came out of my mouth. I'm not even sure I know what it means, but I'm thrilled to join you. Thank you. And I will say one thing as to Tom Brady. A lot of people, when it was rumored that Tom would be perhaps, purchasing an interest in the Raiders, and people asked me if I was angry or upset, my answer is Tom did nothing wrong. Tom Brady did what every fan of every team would want his or her quarterback to do. The issues with that play and the anger over the call, that's not directed at Tom. Tom did nothing that everyone wouldn't want their quarterback to do.
Yes. And as we all know, it was a fumble. And
what a great way to end this discussion.
I know.
With that brilliant observation.
Yes, we all know it was a fumble, and we also know the immaculate reception is the immaculate deception. So I'll let you go with that, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Trask coming on with us, and very, very much appreciated. Stephen, I'm telling you, she's a delight. I met her, like I said, to you off camera at the NFL and CBS Media Day a few years ago. And she came up to me and said hello, and one of the true delights and truly great people. Twitter/X, whatever it's called, can be a cesspool, but she's really one of the bright spots that's in the really that's on that platform. So we appreciate her coming on, and thank you to CBS Sports for helping us to arrange that. We want to give a shout out to CBS Sports public relations for their help on that as well.
Well, thank you, Ken. Certainly your experience, with the awful announcing and the the connections that you have all across the the media landscape really paid off. And we've had certainly a lot of guests over the years, and somebody with Amy's experience and credibility was incredible. Hopefully this give our podcast live stream YouTube show some a boost in the arm and credibility as well moving forward. I'm familiar with Amy, not on the personal level, but when the Raiders were in the LA area. You know, I lived in Southern California back in the late 80s until early 90s. You know, that was when the Raiders were in Los Angeles playing in the, Coliseum a few
Right.
years after the 1984 LA Olympics. And, it was, somewhat, noticeable empty seats in the, LA, old LA Coliseum. Certainly, when I lived, that was when the stories of Davis and battles with the Los Angeles to make improvements on the Coliseum were still very much in the forefront. And eventually Davis got his way, moved the team back to Oakland, and then now Las Vegas. And certainly, it was very interesting to hear her stories about working for Al Davis's. And it would be nice to have her back on again and maybe do a little more deep dive into her experiences and from a business perspective, what can she offer anybody who's looking to break into the industry and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I forgot to mention also she is the author of a book, You Negotiate Like a Girl. That came out a few years ago, and wanted to mention, of course, she's a lawyer, so she knows quite a bit of what she talks about, and great stuff. We appreciate her being on. Don't forget to watch her every Sunday on That Other Pregame Show on CBS Sports Network at 8 o'clock. 8 a.m. Eastern time, 5 o'clock Pacific time. So again, no, thanks to Amy for coming on. Stephen, we got a few more subjects to discuss before we go. What's on the agenda tonight?
Well, let's see. We've been discussing about this man for quite a while. Finally, Luis Rubiales' tenure has come to an end. He resigned probably more like begrudgingly 2 days ago. Certainly, he still has a long road ahead of him. You know, the reputation, the tarnish that he has done to the Spanish football and the football world is just simply damaging. A lot of angst amongst the Spanish woman female team that won the World Cup this summer. Certainly, it overshadows everything that these women have accomplished, and it is just a sad, sad ordeal, Ken. That the Rubiales' damage and his ego brought so much unwanted attention and the tarnished the reputation of the Spaniards and the country of Spain, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it took so long, but Rubiales went on, believe it or not, he went on the Piers Morgan show, or an
Yes.
interview show with Piers Morgan.
Another noted misogynist douchebag.
Yeah. So he was on with him on Sunday. And again, what is it with these guys who say, well, and using their daughters as a shield? He said, I talked with my family and my daughters. I mean, don't try and say, hey, I got daughters, and so I know how they feel. No, this is your behavior. And Rubiales used the platform with Piers Morgan on Sunday in the UK to basically announce his resignation from the Spanish Federation. Why he didn't decide to do this at a press conference in Spain, or even just do a statement, I'm not sure, but he decided to use Piers Morgan, who is probably not going to ask him any hard questions. So he used that to resign. But still, that is not stopping Jenny Hermoso, who was kissed against her will at the World Cup ceremony in Australia last month, to file criminal charges against him. We talked about that on our last edition. But Stephen, I'm really hoping that we don't have to talk about Luis Rubiales and Jorge Vilda anymore, and talk about the great players of Spain and what great talent they have, and finally they can build and move on, and perhaps build on their victory, and see what type of um, dynasty that they can bring to women's football in the coming years, Stephen.
I hope so too. Women's sports is growing, but when you have a wrong people in the leadership position, um, it does more harm than good. And during my conversation with Amy Trask, I brought up about the owners in both, Major League and the NFL, arrogantly demanding and even threatening cities, municipalities for, you know, funding for, building new stadiums or refurbishing. And there's a correlation with the people like Rubiales, and then one thing that's probably you and I will agree with this is the sheer arrogance of these people, especially men who are in a position of power. And Rubiales is certainly a man who has done a significant amount of damage to his country, the soccer federation, through misogyny. And, I think misogyny and racism kind of go hand in hand. Because we have been seeing a sheer amount of we're witnessing sheer amount of both misogyny and racism all over the country and around the world, and these days. And it's usually started, or at least people like Rubiales, people like Piers Morgan, in media side are enabling, and it's kind of a deeply sickening, thing that we are witnessing. I certainly wanted to maybe ask Amy about that, but certainly probably wasn't the right time, and we probably certainly didn't have enough time to ask her about that question, which hopefully, we get to reserve that for next time, if unfortunately if this type of incidents continue to go on, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, let us hope that this is the last time we have to talk about. And we've saved this banner. By the way, this banner, an update on Luis Rubiales and Spanish Federation, we used it 3 times, and we hope that we don't have to use this banner anymore. So certainly, Rubiales and the Spanish Federation and Jorge Vilda, let's hope that we don't have to discuss them again. Also, Stephen, the United States men's team is going to have a friendly against Oman coming up very shortly. But they had a game against Uzbekistan. Now, that was on Saturday. I admit I didn't watch the game, and that's because I was watching something else, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But Uzbekistan, United States, again, we've talked about Greg Berhalter's coaching style and the lack of imagination. I'm going to have to lean on you on this one. How did they play?
Well, Ken, I didn't watch the game personally myself. I've followed somebody that I've had the pleasure of interviewing on our show previously. Tactical manager on Twitter, Filippo Silva. His live streaming of the game as well as the Twitter. And then I also went back to YouTube to watch the highlights of the game. And I got to tell you, Ken, the game itself wasn't really very good. It was held in St. Louis, which they dubbed it the soccer capital of the world. And, Berhalter, who has been very elusive in the media, spoke glowingly about the impact of St. Louis. And I understand, there's a fair amount of soccer players who represented the U.S. Men's national team that have come from that region, and I understand. But the stadium was, basically only maybe 60%, 70% filled. A lot of empty stadiums were noticeable. There were even smattering of boos when he came out. I'm going to play an interview by Jeff Carlisle, who actually covered this game. So bear with me and what he had to say here.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
We don't want the commercial.
No, that was the wrong
More
one.
on the U.S. men's national team. Great to welcome into the show now, Jeff
You can
Carl
go full screen on that, Steven.
over at ESPN.com. He's at home now, but he was in St. Louis for the game against Uzbekistan. And I was following Jeff on Twitter. And before the game even started, Jeff tweeted out something about the reaction from the crowd to the team intros. Okay, Jeff? I want you to tell me what the crowd reaction was to the player intros, to the manager intro, and what you made of it.
Well, I mean, the player intros are the usual, cheers. Big cheer for Christian Pulisic. Obviously, he's the best known U.S. player. But then when it came to Greg Berhalter, it was much more muted, and there was a smattering of boos. I'm not going to say that the whole stadium was descending on Greg Berhalter and giving him grief, but you could hear some boos. And I think this is just reflective of the way a vocal segment of the fan base feels right now. They are not happy to see Greg Berhalter return as manager, and they would have much preferred to see the USSF hire somebody else. But this is where the U.S. men's national team is right now. I mean, Greg Berhalter is the manager for the foreseeable future, and we're just going to have to see how things play out. But clearly, some of the fans there made their feelings abundantly clear.
As expected, right? I don't think anybody here didn't expect that. We see the response online, and it's not just online, it's people shelling out their hard-earned money. The people who went there voicing their displeasure. This is going to be par for the course, and at least until Greg Berhalter and this U.S. men's national team earn their way out of this.
Yeah. What else was interesting, I think, is kind of the atmosphere in the stadium, right? Because we've seen this stadium packed for Major League Soccer. We've seen St. Louis sell a lot of tickets for U.S. soccer. I remember the U.S. women's national team played there. It was in Busch Stadium, a much bigger facility. Back in 2015, they had something like 35,000 fans. And yet, Jeff, not only was the response what you're describing from those in the building, but it didn't seem like there was all that many people in this building. We've heard it's a soccer capital of the United States. As best as you can guess, why do you think U.S. soccer is having trouble filling a stadium for its men's national team in a city where we know soccer sells?
Well, I don't think the opponent was particularly attractive. I mean, it's one thing if it's a Germany or an Argentina, but if it's Uzbekistan, who I think were ranked 73rd in the world, 74th, somewhere around there, that's not going to really move the needle if you're a U.S. men's national team fan. And if I'm not mistaken, the U.S. was there recently for the Gold Cup. And from what I hear, and granted this is anecdotal, some of the fans felt burned in terms of the team that the U.S. men's national team fielded in the Gold Cup. I mean, obviously it was a B or even a C team. But on this occasion, it was as much of the A team that was available. I mean, the only starter I think who wasn't there was Tyler Adams, and he's injured, or at least coming back from an injury. So I've also heard some complaints about the ticket prices, that it's just much too expensive. It's just not an attractive proposition when you put together the opponent as well as how much money it costs to actually attend the game in person. And it was a beautiful fall, or at least late summer weekend, I should say. And obviously people decided they had better things to do.
Right. Yeah. That's
We've
again.
heard these-
Oh, okay. Yeah. That I was going to say that we got the point there, and pretty much, Stephen, as Carlisle said there, fans felt burned, and Uzbekistan is not a draw. Why they chose Uzbekistan and Oman to play these two? I know, granted, the European teams are the glamour teams like Germany, France, and England. They're playing in the UEFA European qualifiers. You're not going to get Argentina and Brazil because they're playing in CONMEBOL, but you could certainly try and get a little bit better opponent for a friendly, than Uzbekistan and Oman. You're not going to, and as Carlisle said, you're not going to get them to draw, especially like that. At $100 a ticket, it's really not worth it.
Right. And that's not how you grow a game. Certainly the fatigue that, of bringing back Berhalter to this cycle does not help at all, because I'm about to play a clip that the whole process of bringing back, or at least interviewing other candidates and bringing back Berhalter was always a plan, and the whole thing was basically a sham. I'm going to play this, okay?
All right.
And we get the group together is a good opportunity to keep building on what we've had. The plan from the beginning in 2018 when I took over is to really bring this group through 2 cycles. And it's a young, talented group. And now it's really about an opportunity to do something impactful. For us, it's about changing soccer in America.
So he just basically admitted that this was a 2 cycle. He was being hired for 2 cycles. And,
Yeah.
the whole process that they were bringing in a guy from England, Matt Crocker, to be the just sporting director, replacing Ernie Stewart, and do this comprehensive interview and hiring a sports firm. It was just a whole, a charade. And then just basically giving Berhalter just, sit at home and do absolutely nothing. And then eventually bringing him back after what U.S. soccer looked like they were doing something, some sort of, formal interviews with other candidates for the U.S. men's national team job. And this whole sham process was, certainly Berhalter himself admitting this. It does not help, and that the U.S. Soccer Federation played along in the lied about the whole thing. This does not help.
Right.
Berhalter has shown no imagination on the pitch. Even the Uzbekistan game, they scored a goal within the first 5 minutes. And then the rest of the 85 minutes, they were just basically struggling. And then Uzbekistan basically had several good chances. Now, remind you, this is the team that flew all the way from Central Asia, lost their luggage, and they they were basically playing with 10 men after they exhausted up all their reserves. And one of the players, were severely injured and could not return. So they were basically playing with 10 men, and they were still dominating the United States. The U.S. scored 2 goals late, in the, the extra time. 3-0 is obviously certainly unfortunately it's like basically putting lipsticks on a pig. I don't think nobody should be duped into thinking that the U.S. dominated this game. They're playing Oman tonight. Certainly another easy opponent, but certainly U.S. Soccer Federation probably brought these 2 Asian countries in thinking that it's going to be an easy victory. But certainly I think a lot of soccer fans, especially the ones we saw in St. Louis, and we've also seen in friendlies, the outrageous pricing in cities in which they play mostly in Ohio most of the time. Certainly they should probably spread the game out to other cities, just in order to grow the game and expose the men's national team. I think U.S. Soccer Federation has been really, really coddling Berhalter to a degree. I think it's a total mistake, and it's also sickening that there's a whole process of sham process of bringing back Berhalter was always in the cards. Despite him admitting to the domestic violence. Certainly, even if it was something from 30 years ago, he admitted it. It was blackmailed by the Gio Reyna's parents, which certainly stemmed from the frosty relationship between Gio Reyna and Greg Berhalter that has not been resolved. It's funny that about the whole situation when noted fire thrower and gaslighter Alexei Lalas even went to Twitter and said that why is he, in this case, he, as in Greg Berhalter, who has not spoken to Gio Reyna directly, but he has time to go on to Vanity Fair, which we brought it up in our last presentation of our show, and then he's even questioning that. That the whole thing is ridiculous. Even when noted, gaslighter and a Triple G supporter is even questioning why Berhalter is talking to, Vanity Fair rather than talking to, Gio Reyna himself.
Right, right. Let's move on. We have just a few more minutes of our time here with you today, but let's talk quickly about Michigan State football coach Mel Tucker. He has been suspended by the school pending an investigation under sexual harassment. He brought in rape survivor Brenda Tracy to speak to his school a few times. And according to a USA Today article, which broke late Saturday night, it was like almost like midnight when the story broke, Stephen, that he apparently tried to come on to Brenda Tracy on the phone. And I'm not going to get into the entire thing, but his behavior on the phone and trying to basically accuse Tracy of consensual phone sex conversation is just ridiculous. Now, I have a brief encounter with Ms. Tracy. She's a great person. She is trying to change the rape culture in sports. She's spoken to many schools. She thought Michigan State was responding to her, but then Mel Tucker, according to the story in USA Today, was having trouble with his wife. So apparently he decided to come on to Brenda Tracy, and she basically said no. She said, no, please do not do this. But then he proceeded to try and have phone sex with her anyway, which is ridiculous. And then after she rejected his she rejected him and just said, let's be friends. He cut her off and wouldn't let her speak to the school anymore. So he's on suspension. It's under Title IX investigation. Most likely Tucker has coached his last game, Stephen. But again, this type of behavior, we've called it out before. And Brenda Tracy is a person who, as I mentioned, trying to change the rape culture in sports. And she doesn't have to deal with, she has to deal with this again. This is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. Again, this is the topic of discussion we've had earlier regarding the misogyny and arrogance in the sporting world that we have right now, and the culture of enabling them, whether it's the men like Piers Morgan or even women themselves. So this is a problem. Michigan State has had a long history of problems. We all know the infamous Larry Nassar.
Yes.
That started in Michigan State, and certainly also their rival Michigan also had a problem with Bo Schembechler and the doctor that he employed there that had to be that came into light. I'm very familiar with both cases because I used to live in Michigan for about 6 months. Back in 2021 when the issue came into forefront. It's an embarrassing situation for both schools. Certainly, neither school should be weaponizing, each other's problems like this. And I certainly, commend Jim Harbaugh for not using it. And I know Brenda Tracy also commended Jim Harbaugh for not weaponizing, Mel Tucker in the statement.
No,
it's an embarrassing situation all around.
Yeah, Mel Tucker, for his part, has denied his part in this, but I can't see him coaching another game for Michigan State. Michigan State fans, students, alumni, they've dealt with this, as you mentioned, with the Larry Nassar situation, which was dealt with very poorly. Michigan State tried to cover it up. Their president had to resign. They have a interim president right now, and she said this is not the same MSU. Let's hope not. Let's hope that they take care of this situation promptly. It's been under investigation for I think over a year and a half, Stephen, because of this whole situation. They have to do their due diligence because of Title IX. But I think once the results of the investigation are finally over, I don't think Mel Tucker will be coaching another game. I think I think his career is over, to be honest with you. And he's got to realize, he's got to read the room. Brenda Tracy has dealt with so much, and I'm so glad that she has done what she has done by speaking to schools and using her platform. And I can't believe that she has to deal with this. It's just wrong.
No, absolutely. Mel Tucker was already somewhat on the, I wouldn't say a hot seat, but there have been some question about Mel Tucker, in his, entering this season, whether he's still the right coach, for Michigan State. After a, strong start, kind of the program has kind of fizzled a little bit back. And about the same time, Michigan went to the playoffs last year and certainly has been on the upswing recently. But the title that I'm showing, on the Detroit Free Press about Mel Tucker blew his Michigan chances with Michigan, but did he ruin those of future black coaches too? Which is this is a ridiculous racist title, and this is incredibly bad. You have to separate the Mel Tucker issue, and as if you're framing it as if all the black coaches in the country are also noted, predator, which is not the case. Mel Tucker's issue is a completely outlier that he brought it on himself. And it shouldn't be pictured as if, the future black coaches, including Deion Sanders, who is doing a super job with Colorado, shouldn't be framed in this manner. And again, it goes to show that, the people in media, the Piers Morgans of the world doesn't exist, not just on TV, but also in print media, trying to, bring the, try to stoke a racial tension.
Right.
In for clicks and likes from a bunch of right wingers or conservative personalities who are trying to stoke fear into the hearts of the American public with this racist titles, which I certainly Mel Tucker deserves significant amount of blame for what he did. But it doesn't mean that the other black coaches should be seen in the same picture or framed that way. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I mean, I'm glad you did. That is, again, a very bad headline by the Detroit Free Press.
And it's being called out, on social media as well.
Good. I mean, Mike Tomlin is not Mel Tucker, nor Mel Tucker is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is a great man of great character. We've seen that, as you mentioned, Deion Sanders, if you've seen some of the relationships he has with his men, he's a second father to these kids, some kids who don't have a father, some kids who have a father in prison. Just some of the great stories that he's done there. So again, you cannot use a broad brush to paint all black coaches just because of one person. That would be like saying, Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong-un, he's a bad person, so therefore all Asians are bad people. No, that's not the case. So again,
exactly,
very bad. Let's end it on a positive note, Stephen. Let's go to a great story. Coco Gauff over the weekend, 18-year-old, had a great U.S. Open. I basically saw her journey starting off this in the very first match against Laura Siegemund, and then going all the way to the final against Yelena Sabalenka. Arena Sabalenka, and she had to go to 3 sets to defeat Sabalenka. Wonderful story. She is going to go. She was wonderful, and the great story that she has become, Stephen. And thanks to this win, she is number 3 in the world, and she's also number 1 in doubles too. So hats off to her, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. The diversity in in tennis was on display. On the men's side, Francis Tiafoe made it all the way to the round of 16, I believe, or the quarterfinals, and then he lost to Ben Shelton, who I believe is an interracial tennis player himself at 20 years old. It was overall a very good match for the U.S. Open. I think U.S. men's side has been kind of down for a long, long time. Ever since Andy Roddick left or retired the game, and we're starting to see a new generation of young tennis players. Certainly, golf was inspired and inspirational. Certainly grew up at a time when Serena and Venus were dominating. Samantha Key was also in the semis as well. And let's also add that Naomi Osaka was in attendance during the game, and she announced that she was making a comeback next year. Certainly, we discussed Naomi's situation with mental illness on our previous shows, and it was very, very good to hear her, after giving birth, and that she's ready to make a comeback. Certainly, she's got long ways to go in getting back to top form, but I'm sure that she's going to do everything she can to get back and ready to become another dominant force in the women's tennis world as well. So,
yeah, and the fact that she came on and had a very great speech. She had a great moment after she won. She tried to FaceTime her brother, but her brother was celebrating so much of the win that he didn't see her phone call, and then he tried to call her back, but couldn't reach her because she was so busy. She also went up to see her dad and called out the fact that her dad was crying. He goes, he never cries, but we got to see it in 4K, and he was like, no, don't say it was crying, don't say it was crying, because he wants to say he's a tough guy. But great moment, and Coco Gauff will certainly be the face of women's tennis for a long time to come. You have people like Iga Swiatek and also Sabalenka, and she's going to be there in the mix as well, and probably winning many more championships, Stephen. So it's great to see.
Absolutely. There's two incidents that overshadowed the U.S. Open. One, I think it was in her match, environmental activists.
Yes. That was a semifinal.
That was a semifinal. Glued themselves, making noises about.
Yeah. So what happened?
Their feet. Yes. So
yeah.
it was embarrassing.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened? There were three environmental protesters, and they were angry. They were yelling about fossil fuels. Two people left, but a man glued his feet to the concrete floor on the upper deck, and it took them almost an hour to get him out of there. The delay was almost about 50 minutes, Stephen, but credit Coco Gauff, and I forgot who the semifinalist was at this time, but they waited it out. They basically treated it as a rain delay, and then they came back out, and Coco won, of course. So, but really, to be honest with you, while we all know that the earth is going to hell in a handbasket, and of course there are times to protest, and there are venues to protest, but that was not necessarily the right one to protest. There was also another one who tried to protest at Wimbledon by throwing some objects on the court, and that caused a delay about 30 minutes and actually changed the momentum of that match. So again, there are times and places to protest. There are times and places to get your message out, but sometimes sporting venues are not the best place. And when you do it like that, you're kind of hurting your cause instead of helping it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So what was the other? You said there were a couple of incidents. What was the other incident, Stephen?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I think there was a bit of a lag there for the Wi-Fi. And then there was also another ugly incident involving men's side. German player Alexander Zverev complained that the man used the language from Adolf Hitler's Nazis. I believe this was in a match in the semifinals. I'm going to play this one right now.
Chance here for Sinner to make something happen.
Just said the most famous Hitler phrase there is in the
No, it's not right.
Hitler phrase there is in this world. It's unacceptable. This is unbelievable. So who was the smart boy who said that? Put your hand up. Who said that? Who said that? Who said that? Okay. We're going to get him out. We'll get him out.
I'm glad that Zverev
Ladies and gentlemen,
putting him out. That was again, that's behavior that's uncalled for. Trying to use a Nazi salute or the Hitler phrase. I'm glad that the umpire called it out, and they got security to get that person out. That's just not right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's becoming more and more prevalent now in the sporting world globally. We've even had another ugly incident on Saturday when Texas beat Alabama in Alabama, Tuscaloosa. There was a video surfacing about the Alabama fans yelling at the Texas fans, Texas players dancing on their sidelines, you know, to go back to their projects. And some people responded that Alabama as a state as a whole is a project. What are you talking about? Certainly a nice comeback there. But, you know, it's becoming more and more prevalent, and, you know, and it's becoming more and more brazen. When things like this are happening. And, you know, sports is supposed to be like kind of like a last bastion where people can escape. People of all sides, you know, politically and religiously can celebrate together. But it's unfortunately, it's becoming more and more that is no longer the case anymore. And certainly players in the organization has to step up and speak out on these types of incidents. Because you know, not many mainstream media cares much about, at least in this country right now, certainly with the NFL dominating, you know, the headlines 24/7. So I hope that you know, these incidents get more and more attention moving forward.
Right. Absolutely. And well, we certainly hope, and always we will call out bad behavior. I don't know if you noticed it, but in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that you may have noticed, I put our logo up there, our old logo from the Ballroom Network, so to show our branding. So don't forget that the Double A Team is available on YouTube. It's on our it's on the page of the Double A Team podcast the Double A podcast team page. I don't know why it was tough for me to say that. It's on my channel under KZF1 or Fangs Bites. You can find it there. And Stephen, I think this podcast is also available on wherever you can find your podcast, correct?
Absolutely. You know, we have to upload it this streaming, but our old podcasts, the ones we have recorded so far, can be found on Podbean, Spotify, iHeart, and other wherever you can hear a podcast, you can find it. And then we will continue to make the improvements on our YouTube channels, and also add the the opening and the ending banners to make it look like a legitimate channels moving forward as well. Ken.
Absolutely. And again, we thank Amy Trask of CBS Sports for coming on. If you saw it, if you were with us at the beginning, you may notice that she was not on camera. She requested that she not be on camera, which we granted. But the connection was great. We were able to hear her, so it was wonderful that she was on with us. We hope to have more guests on in the future on the Double A Team. And again, we thank you for joining us, whether you're listening to us, whether you're watching us. We are also live streaming this on our Twitter accounts, which you can see there, Asian Sports Fan 1, and also Fangs Bites. So we're available anywhere you can watch us.
Absolutely. Ken, thanks for joining us tonight, and let's do this again very, very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you down the road on the Double A Team. Thank you very much.